Thank you, Jean. Well, I admire you for teaching and putting the education first always.
Yeah,
So,
well, there were some teachers that meant an awful lot to me on my way up and gave me a lot of encouragement. And then there were some teachers who were horrible, who competed with their students. And, so I've seen it all, and I've seen what I feel is important. And so I sort of think of this as like, well, we have a repertory company. That first class at Juilliard with Patti LuPone and Kevin Kline, John Houseman at Juilliard, who taught them, he didn't want to let him go. So he formed something called the Acting Company. And that's where they learned their chops. They performed all over the United States. They also did a lot of drugs too, but that's another story. That's gossip, right? The reputation about Patti LuPone when she was doing Evita's, half her salary went up her nose, but that's gossip. But that's how I sort of see this, as we're colleagues, we're collaborating, we're exploring and finding, new ways in to use imagination. So Maj, did you have something to say? Spill that tea.
Honestly, no. I was just living for the tea that you're spilling.
What was that?
I said, honestly, I didn't have anything to add. I was just living for the tea you were spilling. You'd say.
Right, it's very fun. So anything on anyone's mind? What do you want to delve into? We have Carolyn who's going to do something today, which is wonderful. Anything that you've been grappling with or thinking about? I know it's hard to be posed a question like that, but what, yeah, Kyle.
I'm still struggling a lot with not that like split second difference between like getting up and allowing yourself to enter flow and not preparing, not like what that sort of freezing is that happens, that like just like that habit of going in.
Right.
On that, yeah.
But you just nailed it. You just nailed it by talking about it. You said the habit of going in. It's just recognizing that. That's what this work gives to us. We recognize, we go up there and we freeze. And sometimes at the beginning, you recognize it, but you feel powerless to change it because that's just been such a pattern of getting up and preparing by holding, rather than the ability to see the space. I posed this question to the second years on Monday. We had a very teeny tiny class, but it was wonderful. And Julian did some amazing work, character work. But I started class by asking them what commitment meant to them, because you hear that all the time, right? Maybe you don't hear it as much, but we used to hear it a lot, right? You have to be more committed as an actor. You have to be, so what is that to you? And then I'll tell you what some of the responses I got. Anyone want to venture a guess? Teach, so you're not committed there. What would you say? Yeah, Sina.
It makes me think just allowing your imagination and the kind of invisible things we've done before to just really just to be there. And I think that kind of ties into what Kyle and you were just talking about in terms of preparing or like freezing or like trying to conjure up all this stuff, but it's our imaginations are just we do all that stuff if you just like let it, I feel like.
And where is it coming from you right now? Because I can feel it. Do you know?
My psoas.
Yes, indeedy. You have to know that, but that is excellent, Sina. I could feel it all coming from here. Excellent, excellent. Josh, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say something very similar of like the listening and allowing what has been said and allowing the circumstances to be breathed in and allowing that impulse from psoas to inform the next thing, the next action.
That's right. Somebody else. Anything? So some of the responses, I think John Henry was saying, well, it goes, you can be here or you can be right here and direct it toward, your partner. So that was his interpretation. Other people said other things, but I felt it was a very conceptual high place. But both Josh and Sina, you're absolutely right. We begin to understand this engagement beyond a shadow of a doubt. It doesn't become, at the beginning I totally agree with you. It's very conceptual. And we say words like flow, and we're not really quite sure what that means, but we sort of feels good. But it becomes a very much upper body experience because it's ideas and it's concepts rather than the difficult reality of really finding that support, that inner support, and letting everything come from that place. That's why we're such a stickler in whatever we do. And the reason I started talking about commitment, and Josh knows this and Kyle knows this, I gave a workshop through our diversity coalition at the American Society of Teachers of Alexander Technique. I gave a workshop to help people who were chanting and protesting from not losing their voices. And so I talked there, and you know, the Alexander group, these teachers, it was really to the teachers, they're sort of a staid lot, right? You know, they're very conscious of how they're using their bodies at all times, but it sort of has this demeanor all the time, right? Not the great ones, but in general. So I wanted them to feel a passion, an energy, an up that is so crucial, which is commitment, which is your invigoration, and whether you're even playing something that doesn't have quite that in it, you still have to have that going in you. It was interesting today in the Times, there's a piece about Martha Graham, and during the Spanish Civil War and fascism and all the horrible things that were going on, she wrote to a great American composer, Henry Cowell, and she said the choreographer Martha Graham, quote unquote, had been in a valley of despair. It was 1937 when Graham, worried about the Spanish Civil War and the rise of fascism in Europe, confessed her state of mind in a letter to the composer Henry Cowell. Whether the desperation lies in Spain, she wrote, or in a memory in our own hearts, it is the same. The result was her solo, Immediate Tragedy, a companion piece to another dance inspired by the war, Deep Song. Both featured music by Cowell. Both were explorations of harrowing events. In Immediate Tragedy, Graham told him, I was dedicating myself anew to the space, that in spite of violation, I was upright, and that I was going to stay upright at all costs. So remember that, you know, and Josh and Hannah, when you're going into, I don't know how you do this, because I would probably, you know, lose my temper, a very bad trait I've inherited from my father, who's the head of every ethic committee in whatever hospital he was associated with. But remember that when you're sitting there, you know, you keep your uprightness. It is so easy when we feel all these events around us to go down. Can we keep ourselves upright at all costs? And that's those inner muscles of the body. And the space, you know, the space, Kyle, you're absolutely right. We stand in front of, you know, our audience, our peers, and you are enlivened by the space. You have a relationship with space. I think that's really the essence of what we've been doing this past year, is really understanding the organic nature of things. The life in everything, the life in every word, and that it is not you that endows it with life. That makes sense? It's that relationship, you know? Rajitha, do you want to say something? You look really like you're thoughtful right there.
I'm on mute. Say something in regards to like what you said, or the main
Yeah.
question again.
Yeah, everything, right. You look very mindful there, very thoughtful.
I think I was just I think I was honestly looking up because I was listening to people. I didn't have like a separate thought. And I guess I got caught in a rainstorm when I was on a run today. So I was trying to apply what you said, because that's the best feeling I've had while running, because like it was a literal like storm and I was just drowning. But then I just started laughing because I was like, this is just So like worst situation ever.
Right.
And then like was running past this woman who was walking. She was drenched and like holding her coat out. It was like useless. I was drenched, and we kind of just like shared this laugh together. And I was just interested with how like rain is so down, but that made me feel so up.
Right,
And like
exactly.
kind of that transition of energy is really what I was thinking about.
It's also because we start to surrender to that. We get to a point where it's like, I'm going to be drenched. So just, give over to being drenched. It's not 30 degrees after all, so that does it. Anyone thoughts about anything about that? Keeping keeping upright, keeping in flow. I sometimes I find it curious in me. And I think it's all the years of doing this work and all the years of practice, the daily practice, the whole thing. It is not that I don't get down. Absolutely. I mean, text from Sita or a discussion on Saturday, and just, really a profound sadness afterwards. But it doesn't last for long. Right there. And that isn't a decision on my part. I can't begin to tell you that. Because it surprises me. It's like, why? How can I just keep going, right? I mean, because it is a sadness thinking, well, I won't be teaching you and all these issues with school. But somehow you can keep coming back to that. And that's through years of doing this. Carolyn, you're sitting so beautifully right now. You are so in poise. I don't see one part of your body that I single out as being held. You're just in that place. Chair rises up on, yeah, Kyle.
Sorry, just quick question. But you're talking about your practice. I'm just wondering, like, after so many years of having worked at it, like, what does your practice look like now? Like, what do you do on a daily basis to like continue to cultivate that? Are you just talking about like the table work and breathing and everything we do?
Everything I teach you.
Nice.
And I stay with things, right? I stay with a vowel. I stay, and how much more can I be open with it? How much out of my way can I be? How much observation can I have? What is it telling me? That's how I work. That's why it's such a delight, right? That's why it's utterly, utterly, utterly fun, because something is teaching you, something is telling you something. And it's like, whoa, it's pretty cool. Where did that come from? But that's, of course, your higher creativity. That's your improvisational mind. That's what we're working on here. And I keep saying, it's not you, it's not you. It's something, it's not you. But that's what it is. So there's no limit. There's no limit of exploration. There's no limit of secrets that don't get revealed to you. Reading about the flu epidemic of 1918 and the scientists that worked on them, and some of these scientists lived for the laboratory. That was their lifeblood. They couldn't wait to go to the laboratory in the morning, and they just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. They, they didn't have a family life. Even if they had a wife, felt like she was, outclassed by the laboratory, because they were constantly getting fed where they could go with making discoveries. And that's how you have to work, because you're never finished, ever, ever. I work harder now than I ever worked in my life. I work harder now in my practice, but it's not work. It's just discovery all the time. So, that's what you have in store for you, but that's the artist, right? It's like a scientist. You have to be devoted to doing that. You have to love doing that. Love improvisation, love rehearsals, love the process. It's just loving the process so much. And there are people, was a wonderful performer, wonderful actress, wonderful singer, Barbara Harris. She was in the first Broadway show I ever saw, which was On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. And in her obituary when she died, they just talked about how much she loved the process. She loved the process of rehearsing so much more than she actually loved the performances. So that's how you have to be. It's very cool, right? So I love it. Kyle, thank you. Please interrupt, ask any questions, give me any observations, but let's just we can let our legs even come up a little bit from the floor. so that you sense how you are held up by all these inner muscles. You could even put your hands here and just get a sense of this aliveness of this round thing inside you. And how those core muscles, the psoas muscles, ignite it, open us up. So that little floor work video I sent you over yesterday, you know, we start with, I think this is really important for us to begin to sense how we have this automatic expansion from this linking. So when you do the foot flexion, it's almost like putting your foot, not like that on a gas pedal, but the opposite way, and it instantaneously opens you. So the more that you can understand how we open front to back, side to side. I wrote a missive to Jane Brody at the New York Times yesterday because she wrote her personal health column, and she talked about how her physical therapist helped her do diaphragmatic breathing by telling her that the chest doesn't move. You keep the chest from moving and you just let the belly open to breathe. And then you exhale, I think, did she say from the mouth? I have to look it up. And then, no, she didn't say it like that, but the implication was down. And I just thought, you know, come on, lady, you know, you've got a science degree. It's just wrong. And then she says that singers and actors breathe this way, diaphragmatically. So I do a little overview of breathing, and which my husband said, you know, is too complex, even though she's a scientist, so I'll cut that down. But then I talked about, in the 70s, when I was invited to participate in a master class with the great, Hannah, you may know her, great American mezzo-soprano, Jan DiGattani. She was the first one to tell me. She made me feel up underneath my armpits, to feel where my ribs went. And she talked about that. And then a few years ago, when Renee Fleming gave a master class to students, she also did the same thing, taught them about rib cage. So we want to, you know, enjoy this feeling of being expansive. You can't, you know, look at the film of Patti LuPone singing, you know, look at Pavarotti, look at this phenomenal expansion through their whole bodies. So while we're seated, let's do, and then we'll do it standing, our hiss. But before you do it, feel in yourself, when I said that, did you have a little momentary jump to start it? You know, or could you just have stayed in that beautiful state of pulse, cleared out the mind, knowing exactly how it works? So I'm going to ask, I think, Mr. J there, tell me, give me your process before you start that hiss. What is it about to you? Ah, that's a better question. What is it about to you? I think you have to unmute yourself. I'm trying to do it on my end, but I can't. Okay, so Jay, yeah. Okay, don't worry. Somebody else. Somebody else. What directions do you give yourself? What does that hiss mean to you? Why do we do it? I've asked you that before, but I think it's important. We're becoming very clear in mind now. Why do we do it? Yeah, Josh.
Is it to connect, or you want the process or the why that we do?
I want the first. What does it mean to you? Why is it that we do it? Somebody asked you to do that.
I think I'm thinking that it's because it allows us to connect our breath, the psoas and breath and diaphragm, with the upward movement, without any, first to connect the flow of breath without the obligation of making a sound.
Bravo. That's excellent. So really it is about observing how breath moves up and out of us. It's enough for us. We know that hisses want it. We don't need to make it. We are really exploring support. How it is that, you know, again, let's just talk about it, that need to express, that desire to express, my hands show it now, ignites the diaphragm, and the diaphragm sustains the air pressure to send that flow up. So you watch yourself and you say, Anita yesterday was saying, boy, one has to do this work, one has to have, and she said feeling, and I said, it's a sensitivity. You have to be alert to every little thing that comes up into mind. And it's really quite fun because you get taught so much. So you become very alert to your habit, like Kyle was saying earlier, of wanting to do it, to do something from up here, but instead, so you're watching this flow of air. Truly, you are watching a flow of air move up. It almost traverses, you could say, the whole of the spine and comes out. So you make that distinction, that's beautiful, Becky, between I'm doing something and I'm observing something happening to me, which is really fun. And if you're really out of your way, you will feel how the muscles engage, especially at the end of it. You will feel so as to diaphragm. These are unconscious muscles, right? They're involuntary muscles, but you will feel their engagement. So that's a learning too. You get to know your body. So let's do it again. And if you really feel that strong, ooh, strong, you get to know, I get it. This is what support is. Something here is keeping this enlivened so that it can send air up and out. And so you start to know it. You know, I mean, how amazing is that? You start to get in touch with your unconscious mind. And if you can do that, you're connecting to your creative mind. See, there's a method to all this hard work, method to this madness. So now we are going to sound it. First thing, and it's no one's fault, we're all at fault by talking about voice and all those things and sounding, because our instinct is to immediately go here. It's like, you know, working with people who sing, you know, they talk about singing and they have big breaks in their voice. Well, because they're trying to sing. So sounding is commitment, right? Desire, need to express. You know you want sound, the hiss to sound. You don't have to make it. You let yourself go. Something infiltrates you. Something invigorates. And you watch yourself for any little hints of you wanting to go high and to initiate the sound. So you're staying committed, right? You're staying in the ground, the essence of you, your well, your source. That's where it all arises. Think about that. You've got this big old well in here of good stuff, and things arise out of it. I think I told you in the fall at some point that my acting teacher at Michael Chekhov, Blair Cutting, who was an elderly gentleman at the time, probably much like Ron, and he was really wonderful. He had been head of talent at Warner Brothers for 25 years. And he used to say to us, I'm a happy man, but I have a reservoir of tears. So I don't think that any of us really understood it, Well, I understand that now, right? We have a reservoir here, we have a source, we have a well, and things come out of that like that. So now we sound it, and unmute yourself so I get to hear. This is the frustration of Zoom, I know, but you know, I'll hear well if you do that. Very, very good. Josh, be careful. It was a tiny bit going down a little bit instead of the engagement.
Okay.
Kyle, describe what went on with you. May I say to you, it's the best I've ever heard out of you, but beyond that, it wasn't about the hearing. I could feel your support. How do you come to understand that in yourself? What did you experience? What did those unconscious muscles teach you?
Yeah, well, I was trying to just stay with being down here and not jumping into my throat. And one of the things that you said a few weeks ago that's been helping me with that is that, like, with text, you know, we talk about the timing of the text revealing itself to you, and like each hiss, you know, I've been kind of experimenting with that. Like the hiss reveals itself as it comes out, and just constantly, you know, renewing that sense of opening.
Right.
In the back with the whispered ah, and what we were also talking about with the almost feeling like the stream of air and the music around it are experiencing them almost as like two separate things that are coming out as one.
Could you feel, because I could in your body, and this is, you know, our work, we can feel people, right? Could you feel how this kept you expanded here?
Oh, yeah, but it wasn't
that's just your support.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, I know we've talked about before, and I think Stephen mentioned it in voice class too, like old singing teachers who used to try and like keep you like keep your ribs out, but it's not that. It's like it becomes engaged without you thinking, like without you forcing it to happen. It's like the attention there allows it to happen as a byproduct, but if you try to do it, you just like clamp down around it.
And that's why it's important when you see the you know, the video on the floor work. It's the simple little things that we do. Everything that we do, you know, if we do that, the leg, the foot flexion, you will feel how you get expanded and you automatically inhale. Support for the voice is really assuming the conditions for inhalation when you're exhaling. I mean, that, you know, if I had to make sort of a generalization, that's what it is. So the more that you have that experience in every movement exercise you do, and discipline yourselves for that. Don't let yourself do movement exercise that is not coming out of psoas diaphragm. That is not coming out of the psoas that's going to stimulate the diaphragm to inhale you. Right? Then you really learn something about your inner workings, your inner body, because that's where all movement comes from. So we'll play more with that. So let's do it again. And with that in mind, you can have your hands here. See if you can pick up after the fact. See, this is how it works, is that you're sort of stepped aside from yourself and you're observing something happening to being. You can't be inside yourself trying to feel, because you cut off everything if you do that. And that revving of the motor that changes our pitch, right? That's just from here rather than the trying to do it, because if we do try to change those pitches, we'll go down. So one more time. Rev, rev, rev. And the key is keeping that, the breath, right? So it's almost, I mean, I don't find good words for this, but to me it feels like the breath precedes it. That's not great because I don't want you to get confused by that. But it's different if I went, zzz. See, that's not on breath. See, that it's almost like I drink in all this atmosphere. You know, our famous sipping, 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 zzz, sipping. You know, it's almost like I play an instrument of breath out here. In myself, when I just did that, I was very aware of how this kept opening up more and more and more, especially as I went higher. You can't make that happen. That is a result of support, of being from here to here. So, you know, that's why we're being a bit religious about this now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Give me 2 things that you immediately latch onto with your mind when you think about doing the voice counts of 10. Again, the question, why do we do voice counts of 10? Somebody who hasn't answered. So no Kyle, no Josh. Yeah, Beck.
It's bringing what we were practicing with the voiced S and the S, but bringing it onto words in text.
And yes, indeed. What makes the word?
Well, speech is a reflex, so it's got to come from the SOAS.
Right, exactly. Speech is a reflex, right? So it's just open, 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 open. The words say themselves. That's exactly right. So it's really the speed of breath, which we couldn't translate to support, is what articulates the word. So you'll find if you're doing a tongue twister and you're on breath, and then all of a sudden, you know, diaphragm can't sustain that power of air anymore, and your articulation begins to, you know, not get as distinct. But that's exactly right. There's another part of it. What else comes into mind is something that gives you good guidance when you're doing this. I'm working with the students on Shakespeare like this. What is it? What helps you? Yeah, Hannah.
Perhaps like tasting the word and the inner rhythm. I
Yes,
always think of the Kathy's Boogie.
that is wonderful. What else? What else will guide you? What contains the subtext? What contains meaning? What elevates you and makes it aspirational? And also, let's be honest, focuses.
I think you froze, Jean.
To me here. So if I'm here, what do you hear?
Jean, we missed you for a bit. It froze. Would you mind just repeating the last one that you said?
So I can be here, right? I can be here, I can be here, or I can be here. What is the difference?
There's breath in the second one.
What is that?
Like it looked, I could see that there was breath in your body in the second one.
What else do you hear? So how can you tell that voice is on breath? Absolutely, Majida. There is a tonality in the sound. What is the guidance that I always say helps you so much? If you and I were in a room together, just 2 of us, and we were working together, what would we be looking for? What would we be matching? Kyle?
The overtones.
Yeah. Exactly. You hear the hum. The hum is your integration. The hum, you know, I can go, I'll go into humming mode. I can go into singing mode. Everything comes from that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So before I even start, now listen, I would know this well, right? That engagement. That's why I was saying I want you to begin to feel what engagement of muscles are, and you have to step away from your body to experience how it is teaching you. But then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm always in hum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm hearing the height in the voice. And if you listen to any great actor, you will hear that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As compared to a doing mode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What happens? People can do counts beautifully, and then they go to speak, now is the winner of our discontent. And we get that. Now is the winner of our discontent. Two different things, correct? Or not? Yeah. Which preferred? Which is preferable to your ears? Yeah, number 2, right? Okay, so now, voice counts of 10, using ear.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
1,
7,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2,
1, 2,
3, 4,
3,
5,
4,
6,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
7,
10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
4, 5, 6, 7,
Beautiful.
8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
5,
8,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
7, 8,
6.
9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Beautiful.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wonderful, wonderful work. Did it feel pleasurable and like you didn't want to stop? Yes, indeed so. And I started to feel it in my own body. Hannah, that was the best ever, right? I started to feel something here. Vajita, that was so beautiful. Josh, that was perfect, right? That was totally on breath, totally in this wonderful high spot here. It really is beautiful when it's like that. Your personalities just shine through, and yet it's beyond personality. So it's taking in everything. And it really is gorgeous. Any thoughts about that? Yeah, Kyle? No, that was just.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Josh.
One thing that I'm realizing through especially the counts of 10 is that if I come from a place of real simplicity and ease, I don't have to worry about wanting to go anywhere, like wanting to do any dynamics or anything like that. The overtones will just take me there.
Oh, Josh, that is awesome understanding. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And oftentimes we have to permit ourselves, like working with people in the break of the voice. If you armor it, horrible, everything breaks to smithereens. So the more gentle you are at the beginning, the more it gets through to. And there have been actors, we're watching just a terrible, terrible movie. Act One, which is a great story, a great book by Moss Hart. If you've never read it, and any of you have been involved in community theater or something, Act One is just hysterically funny because you'll see yourselves in that and how you have to deal with people. And it's about the great, director and writer Moss Hart. It was on Broadway in 2014, and I remember we had seen it. I didn't think much of the play then, but we saw, oh look, and this came out of Carolyn, because Carolyn is doing something, Carolyn, there you are, by Georgia Scott. And so then I was thinking about that, and it's horrible. It's got George Hamilton as Moss Hart, and he plays it like it's a sitcom, but it's got Eli Wallach, and Eli Wallach, from the moment you see him on film, he just sparkles. And the thing about Eli Wallach is that he never felt he could make it because he had such a light instrument. But it is such a perfect instrument, so perfectly placed that it would carry any place. He was one of the theater's great actors too. So, you know, I love that. Be gentle, let it come, let it be that still small voice at first, and then it will grow, you know, the famous, you know, little acorns make big trees. Yeah. Carolyn.
That reminds me of in first semester, Sita had us. Oh, feedback. Sorry, I can hear myself very loudly right now. Someone's mic on. Okay, anyway, Sita had us like put our hands against a wall, and it was like working with force, and she was like, what do you feel when you like press it? And then what do you feel when you just like gently touch it? And I noticed that when you like gently had it up against the wall, you could feel so many more almost like colors and textures on the wall. And that just reminds me of like what Josh was saying, is if we don't approach work like pressing, we can find so many other things can like rise to meet us.
That's right. Everything is I thou, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Allowing hand. So when you let the, you know, sometimes I'll take people that have shoulder issues and they've gone to physical therapy, and there's a, you know, a thing they have to do, which is crawling up the wall, and they crawl up the wall like this, right? Because they're trying to do it. But if you play itsy bitsy spider, you come from the psoas. And it's the same thing. And you can play a game too, you know, talking about walls, because this is sometimes what you do, people in physical therapy, you can have the force of the wall come back at you. So when you let the strength of the wall, it's like opening a heavy door if you pull the door, but if you let your hand rest on it and let your inner muscles do it, and they will teach you how to do that, you open the door and it's coming from this incredible place. Everything sensory is all coming from there. Great, let's do our voice counts one more time, then we'll do something with piano, and then Carolyn, if you want to take it away, you can. So, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, there's no prep. Kyle, this is for you too. There's no, okay, I'm going to start now. If you're in this continual state of exhalation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hannah, that's beautiful. Here we go.
1, 2, 3,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That is so tremendous. Josh, that was so great, because I could feel if this in me from you. People, you've never done this better. It is wonderful. Now let's take a line of text. Let's take one in disgrace. Let's do one we know well. Glory be to God for dappled things. Just go.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God.
Glory be to God for dappled things.
Glory be to God. Glory be to God. Glory
Glory be to God for dappled things.
And let's just take this. Glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God.
Glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God.
Glory be to God, glory be to God.
Glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God.
It got not so hot. It got into glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God. I want you to hear that rhythm and that sound. Glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God. As compared to glory be to God, 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 glory be to God. How would you describe that, the difference? Yes, Hina.
Well, one of them was very down. One of them was like, glory be to God. And then the other one was like, it was like, glory be to God. It was a lot more.
Yes, but actually you just did the first one extremely well. Why did you do the first one so extremely well?
Probably because I wasn't thinking about it.
You were on breath in the first way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, well, you know, you were on breath in both, but you intellectualized the second one a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I do, glory be to God, I've become rote. Glory be to God, glory be to God. And that's what gives it that sense of da-da-da-yum, down. Glory be to God, 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 glory be to God. That one I am renewing every single second. I am renewing every single second. Nothing escapes. And that's what you have to learn. Otherwise, things sound rote. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, look how good I am. I can keep going on and on and on and on and on and on. That's rote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is being renewed every single second. That is what is going to energize your audience. And you, too, right? So you never go rote, right? That is so. Glory be to God, 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 glory be to God. As I do it, of course, I'm renewing, but there's also a part of me that's noticing how those words say themselves, how I feel the energy of the air moving up and 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 moving up. So let's just do that. The glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God.
Glory be to God, glory be to God,
Glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God,
glory be to God,
glory be to God, glory be to God, glory be to God,
Glory be to God.
glory be to God,
Glory be to God.
glory be to God,
Glory
glory
be to God. Glory be to God.
be
Glory
to
be to
God, glory be to God, glory be to God,
Glory be to God.
glory be to God.
Yes, that is so beautiful. Becky and Hannah, that beauty in you of just that opening, you know. Becky, anything you want to say about that? That just is so experiential.
Yeah, it just, it was very, I'm not going to try and bring this down, but it's been very relevant today.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Dappled.
I had an extra, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we embody these words, you know, it's embodied. Everything is embodied, but it's not us. The intellect just is not involved at all. It's the love of the word, you know, everything dappled, 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 you know, and when I say that, what comes into mind, you know, is how dappled we all are. You know, I didn't, how mottled we all are. But that's what happens as a result from embodying the word dappled, 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 dappled. Renew it each time, renew that up. It is not dappled, dappled, dappled. See, that's that way. Dappled, dappled, dappled. Another way would be, in a technical way, you're living the vowel, but I think that's can be a, tried that with Josh Kim yesterday, and I think it just got him a little heady about it. So don't, you know, go with that. But let's just do the word dappled, and then we'll sing something.
Dappled, dappled, dappled,
Dappled, dappled, dappled, dappled, dappled, dappled.
Yes.
Dappled, 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 dappled,
Apple.
dappled,
dappled,
That's
dappled,
what,
dappled, dappled.
that's the best ever. That was truly voice on breath, right? You didn't go dappled, which would be that dappled, 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 dappled. It's almost like we're tasting something in the air, you know, that thick air that surrounds us. Dappled, 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 and you're like a cat's tongue lapping milk, basically. Beautiful, beautiful work. Let's do this. Mame mi mo mu.
Mame mi mo mu.
Yes.
Mame mi mo mu.
Mame mi mo mu.
Mame mi mo
Mame
mu.
mi mo mu.
So it talks a little tiny bit, so I hear a little bit of mame mi mo mu, which to me sounds a little rote, a little like tossing it off. Mame mi mo mu, instead of mame mi mo mu. Mame mi mo mu, 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 mame mi mo mu. You can hear how keeping the hum going, but mame mi mo mu, mame mi mo mu, mame mi mo mu, mame mi mo mu, mame mi mo mu. You can play a game. Air is thick outside of you. Your lips, mame mi mo mu, mame mi mo mu. Your lips play the air. That's just another way. See, it's all imagination. If you're in imagination, you're here. So let's distinguish with our ear and our sensitivity when we push to say the word, when we are renewing all the time. So ma me mi mo mu.
Mommy, me, mama.
Mame mi momu.
Mame mi momu, mame mi momu,
Mame mi momu, mame.
Mame mi momu, mame mi momu, mame mi momu, mame mi momu,
Mame mi momu.
mame mi.
Mame mi momu.
That's exactly right.
mame mi momu, mame mi momu, mame mi momu, mame mi momu, mame mi no momu.
Beautiful, beautiful. Your teacher for this is if you feel nourished. If you feel nourished by doing it, you are right. If it feels like an exercise, you are wrong, basically. If it feels like an exercise you wrote, you're doing it from the head, you're doing it from an idea, you're doing it to get something rather than to make discovery. So that is very profound. Now, I don't think we can do this successfully with people unmuted, which is a bummer because I would like to hear you, but I would like to just very gently and easily, mame mi momu, because I want to begin to help you understand the difference between mame mi momu, something like that, and what Josh was saying, mame mi momu, the gentleness, which allows you to have a focused voice and not over armor the lower tones. So we'll go up chromatically. Mame mi momu, 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 and then we'll go down. And so as I give you, I'll give you like mame mi momu, I'll play this. Mame mi momu, mame mi momu. So every time I play the note prior to when you sing it, you don't even have to worry about this, but air will come in. What we don't want is to be pushing the voice up. Let's do an experiment. It probably will not be so hot, and you'll have to mute yourselves. But just experiment and I was going to say don't mute yourselves, but I think the delay won't work if we do it. But let's try it. Don't mute yourselves right now. Let's do it unmuted, and then we'll do it muted. So I'll just play this like this, and we'll go mame mi momu, mame mi momu, mame mi momu. So like that. So here we go.
Mame mi momu,
Mame mi momu, mame mi momu,
Mame
mame
mi
mi momu,
mame
mame
mi
mi momu,
Mame.
mame mi momu.
Now, I have an idea. Josh, that is just really grand. Really, really, really grand. Do you know that? I mean, you absolutely no pushing at all. That is perfect focus of voice.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah. So why don't I do it a little, I'll do one first, like our how are you today? So I'll go, mame mi momu, when you repeat.
mame mi momu,
Mame mi momu,
Mame
mame mi momu,
mi momu,
mame mi momu.
mame mi
mame
momu,
mi momu.
That's very, very good. Mame mi momu.
mame mi momu,
Very, very good. Mame mi momu.
mame
Mame mi momu.
Yes, beautiful. Just use your ears. Mame mi momu.
Mame mi momu.
Don't push with the voice. Mame mi momu.
mi momu,
Yes. See, very nothingness, right? Mame mi momu.
Mame mi momu.
Beautiful. Mame mi momu.
Mame mi momu.
Yeah, don't push the voice up. By that, I'm hearing a little bit. Mame mi. Just trying to strain up there. Drop down in a way. Mame mi momu.
mame
Mame mi momu.
Josh, light as a feather, everyone. Mame mi momu.
Mommy, me, moo.
Mimi mo moo.
Rob. Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo moo.
Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo moo.
Terrific. Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo moo.
Mommy, me, moo, moo. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo moo.
Terrific. Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo
Terrific. Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo moo.
Terrific. Terrific. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Yes, excellent. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Terrific. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Right, easy, easy. Mommy, me, moo, moo. That's excellent. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Bravo. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Mommy, me, moo, moo. Beautiful. One final one. Mommy, me, moo, moo.
Mimi mo
Awesome, people. Awesome. Any observations from that? Hannah, you want to say something?
Well, for me, this is always so much, because I have so much singing training where I wasn't doing this, I was doing the like forcing and the performative whatever, that it's really so much nicer to just be like, let the sound come out through the breath.
And using the ear like that, hearing, your ear is going to get so good. You will hear that sound of when the voice is on breath. And it's like your muse. You open up to this part of brain somehow that tells you, that teaches you. So it's never the thought of, I'm singing, you know, and of course I went through that too, just like Hannah is saying. I mean, you go up on stage, your armor, you sing, right? You know, I'm the performer. I'm watching myself sing. But then you learn something different. Terrific. Yeah, Josh.
now like I've been from this training that we do here, I've been pretty like sensitive to when I'm singing, especially because I haven't sing as much now as I guess I did before, but especially when like belting and stuff, like there's a certain, the top of my range before falsetto, the mid to top of my range before my falsetto hits. I'm like, I really have to relearn how to sing to do that in the way that we do it here, because I'm now really sensitive to how it feels.
Right. And it was so beautiful what you just did. I mean, that is just perfection of singing. You know, it's interesting, Jay, we're going to blame Jay for this, getting me on the Patti LuPone kick. So I was listening, you know, I sent over the, you know, Here's to the Ladies at Lunch. So even though, you know, I mean, he's got the accoutrements of an opera singer, right? I mean, you know, that probably is family genetics, but that incredible support. But yet you hear the height in her sound. And Michael Karachi was asking me what I thought about Elaine Stritch, and I was saying, no. But then I was listening to her at the Sondheim 80th sing I'm Still Here. And of course, she has no voice at all anymore, or didn't, she's deceased. But boy, was it good. Because her ear was so good, and her sense of, you know that one, right, Jay? Yeah, her sense of timing. And even though she speaks it, she's hearing everything. And you hear, even in her croak of a voice, you hear how she hears that high spot and everything she does. Jay, you want to say something about that? Oh, we got this issue with the audio again. Yeah, sure. Okay, that would be good. So, and as Jay is typing his observations, anything from anyone about doing that? Mommy me mama, you know, it's something you can do when you're doing your lying down where mommy me mama, 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 mommy me mama. You know, you can find your range through that, and you'll hear yourself instantly if you armor. Mommy me mama, you'll have a big break. But mommy me mama, 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 mommy me mama. So you can play with that. Jay, have you written anything or are you still writing? Oh no, he's still writing. So anything else from anyone about that? Anyone have problems with it? Yeah, Sina.
I feel like it kind of clicked for me. My understanding, like my visceral understanding of how our imaginations are in our SOAS. Yeah, there was something that you did where I think it was when you talked about renewal, where I just kind of got a sense of like, oh, this is what Alexander Technique can do, is like open us to that natural renewal, that organic renewal, which is tied here and not tied here or anywhere else, or with like just a cerebral thing. It's just imagination.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, but it opens you up, because to take an Alexander lesson, you can't be looking in. You can't be trying to feel. You can't be trying to remember. You can't be trying to think, what does the teacher want me to do? I'm not getting anything. You just have to find out, how do you stay curious and open, which is, of course, the release of the head off the tip of the spine. I mean, there's a physiology to being open. In terms of voice work, it's opening up the back of the throat. So everything is revolving up in here. So what does Jay tell us? That's great. I thought the exact same thing as you about her, but listening to her, I felt her ride the words, and with the little voice that she had, still experiencing the overtones. And she captured the audience. I could see the picture she painted with the word. Yeah, she was living it. It's all was embodied. And, you know, so it's fun to hear these people, and especially somebody like that who had, you know, sort of didn't have much at the end. Judy Garland was the same thing, but she, I think, overcompensated a little bit when she got to the most extreme, right? It became too much for her. Carolyn, are you ready?
Hey, Jean.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Caroline. When you
that's
say
okay.
my bad. When you say overtones, because I just would love it. And when you say overtones, are you talking about the hum?
That's exactly right. You start to hear, you know, doing it when I'm one-on-one with you in class or with a student, when we're doing the counts, we get to, and why I do it with them is for them to experience being surrounded by vibration, which is a very cool experience, because you feel like you're doing nothing except, as you know, the person on the table, like just opening. So it's a training of the ear to hear that sound. That's what your ear stays attuned to. The words just come out. So I will frequently say to students, let me do all the work. I will drag the breath out of you. That's how I say it. I'll pull the breath out of you if you just stay focused on the overtones. You and I say, meet at a third place out here. And if that's where we're in, and of course, you know, that takes a long time, because students will still be inside themselves doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. You know, I'm hoping that teacher thinks I'm right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the overtone. It's not an overtone.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what projects your tone. That's why you can be effortless and still carry. Okay. Wonderful. So, Carolyn, why don't I put you on speaker view, right?
Okay.
You can play around. Anything you want to tell us about this before you start?
No.
How do you
think? Sorry?
How do you see her? Paint us a portrait of her.
So I see her as someone who moves through the world almost like a cat, like very observant, and very aware of how she's being observed. Especially in this time, I feel like when you leave the house, it's not like now, like we can wear whatever, we can wear our pajamas to the deli. It's like everything is chosen, everything is handmade. I have a lot of care in how I'm being, how I present myself and how people are reacting to me. And also I'm a young woman, living with pretty much alone in New York City. Yeah,
Are you
there's
innocent?
not a whole lot of, sorry?
Are you innocent?
I think I want to be. I think I'm on my way out of that stage though. I'm like more aware of how the world works, but I would prefer to be seen as someone who is more innocent than I am.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Who's talking to and where is she?
I'm on a the trolley. I'm on a train.
Okay.
And I'm talking to Mr. Stevens, who has just struck up a conversation with me, asking if I wanted to like read his newspaper. So, and we're headed into the city. We're headed into New York. Okay. I love to sew. Has it got your monogram? Your initials? Well, it's too bad you're not my brother. I'd monogram all your initials. I don't want you to misjudge me, Mr. Stevens. I'm not the kind of girl who talks to strangers. My friends would die if they knew I was talking to a man who had not been properly introduced. A girl alone in New York can't be too careful, especially a girl in my position. You take it Dr. Quinn's, where I work. He's one of the best dentists there is. And he's got lots of men patients who would be only too glad to start a little flirtation. Why, even Doctor himself was fresh the first time I met him. It turns out he wasn't really, but it seemed that way. He put his arm around me and I leapt away from him like he was a leopard or something. And I said, Doctor, I guess I don't care to work here after all. And then he laughed and said, forget it, that he was just teasing me. He said he didn't want an assistant who was inclined to flirt. Oh, you must forgive me for laughing.
May I stop for a second?
Yes, please.
But I feel I think it can help you more if you're dressed very primly and properly, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's a comedy. It's George S. Kaufman, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So we have to have a little. It has to be more heightened and comedic.
Yeah.
In character,
Because
right? It looks too Carolyn, right? All your beauty, all your intensity, all your sincerity, all your sensitivity, and you can have all of that. Of course, it's going to be in you, but I don't see the sort of the innocent of the properness of her little outfit that she hand sewed and the sitting on the train. I think a little like that. It'd be hard to do that on a train, right? You're
true.
Going to be more upright and talking to him and trying to. Right, you're flirting without flirting.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit more heightened. Don't be afraid of doing that. You're still, if you're coming out of your breath, which you are, you will be truthful. But we want to have fun with this character, right? That's a fun scene, and he's sort of a little bumbling, and he's sort of an innocent too, and so you get a chance to be big.
Okay.
It's so fun to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, appearance. Feel yourself in her with her little hat, or whatever she wore, pillbox or something, and whatever.
Well, I love to sew. Has it got your monogram? Your initials?
And don't go into him.
Okay.
So you lean in, but I don't think she would because she's very proper, right? Or she's trying to be proper because she doesn't want him to think she's too forward, right?
Well, I love to sew.
Yes.
Has it got your monogram? Your initials? Well, it's too bad you're not my brother. I'd monogram all your initials. Oh, I don't want you to misjudge me, Mr. Stevens. I'm not the kind of girl who talks to strangers. My friends would die if they knew I was talking to a man who I'd never been properly introduced. A girl alone in New York can't be too careful. Well, especially a girl in my position. You take it to Dr. Quinn's, where I work. Well, he's one of the best dentists there is. And he's got lots of men patients who would be only too glad to start a little flirtation. Why, even Doctor himself was fresh the first time I met him. Well, it turns out he wasn't really, but it seemed that way. He put his arm around my shoulders and I leapt away from him like he was a leopard or something. And I said, Doctor, I guess I don't care to work here after all. And then he laughed and said, forget it, that he was just teasing me. Well, he said he didn't want an assistant that was inclined to flirt. You must forgive me for laughing. Caroline says I have the best sense of humor out of anyone she's ever met. Oh, the man I marry won't have any complaints. I make practically all my own clothes. Caroline, she's the girl I used to live with, she said that I used to look like I just stepped out of a bandbox, even if it was just to sit at home and read. Sorry, I lost my line.
That's okay. Let's stop for just for a second. It's really good, but it's too sophisticated.
Okay.
You know, it's too intelligent. It's too worldly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you seem to come off too worldly. You know, which is wonderful. You are so playing against type here. Do you know that?
Oh.
You're really playing against type. You'd be much
Fun.
better suited to the other character, more seductive, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's fun to do this, to see if you can dissolve yourself and, you know, just be that sort of, you know, like, you know, trying to be worldly. But I think your posture has a lot to do with the character. So I don't quite see the character in your posture yet.
Okay.
How she would be, how she would sit, how she would, you know, be almost wanting to go to him, but then pulling herself back.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show us, your body has to be the character, and I'm not seeing that yet.
Okay. Okay. Well, I love to sew.
Oh, I
Has
love
it
to
got your?
sew. I love to sew. Oh, I love to
sew.
sew. Has it got your monogram, your initials? You know, oh, it's too bad you're not my brother. You know, so it has to have a little bit more like that instead of I love to sew.
Okay.
Right? You know, play it up a little bit with that small town girl.
I love to sew. Has it got your monogram? Your initials?
Careful.
It's too bad you're not my brother. I'd monogram all your initials.
Yeah, that's too wise. That's too, you know, like I'm just going to tell you something. You know, it doesn't have your sincerity of who this character is. I love to sew. Oh, I love to. See, you know, I love to sew.
I love to sew. I love to sew. I love to sew. I love to sew. I love to sew. Has it got your monogram? Your initials?
Your monogram? Right, you're sort of looking. Does it have your monogram? What is it? His briefcase?
His shirt sleeves.
His shirt. Okay. It's too bad.
I love to sew. Has it got your monogram? Your initials? Well, it's too bad you're not my brother. I'd monogram all your initials. Oh, I don't want you to misjudge me, Mr. Stevens. I am not the kind of girl who talks to strangers. My friends would die if they knew I was talking to a man who might not have been properly introduced. A girl alone in New York can't be too careful, especially a girl in my position. You take it Dr. Quinn's, where I work. He's one of the finest dentists there is. And he's got lots of men patients who would be only too glad to start a little flirtation. Why, even Doctor himself was fresh the first time I met him. Well, it turns out that he wasn't really, but it seemed that way. He put his arm around me, and I leapt away from him like he was a leopard or something. And I said, Doctor, I guess I don't care to work here after all. And then he laughed and said, forget it. And he was just teasing me.
Careful.
Yeah, I went in.
But it was marvelous up to that point. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But then it got too sophisticated and too real, you know?
Okay. Why, even Doctor himself was fresh the first time I met him. Well, it turns out that he wasn't really, but it seemed that way. He put his arm around me and I leapt away from him like he was a leopard or something. And I said, Doctor, I guess I don't care to work here after all. And then he laughed and said, forget it, that he was just teasing me. He said he didn't want an assistant that was inclined to flirt. And from that day, he's never made any advances, except maybe once or twice. Oh, you must forgive me for laughing.
Careful.
Caroline says I have the... You must forgive me for laughing.
May I stop you?
Yeah.
Carol, it's wonderful, but don't let it get into the Uncle Vanya, right? You know what I mean? You got to keep
Yeah,
it.
I do. Keep it. Yeah.
Being that character, keep renewing her, right? I mean, you know, these are stock characters, really.
Yeah. And from that day, he's never made any advances, except maybe once or twice. Oh, you must forgive me for laughing. Caroline says I have the keenest sense of humor out of anyone she's ever met.
Right.
Man I marry shouldn't have any complaints.
Keep
I
it
make
up.
practically all my own clothes. Caroline, well, she's the girl I used to live with. She used to say that I always, I'm sorry.
Stop you just for a second. Keep your up. You know, you're letting your body droop down, and that gives a
You're
different
right.
impression. But she's very prim and proper. She's not really, right? But she's prim and proper, and she's presenting herself. Those were the way women were like that. And this, again, it's comedic, right? So if you keep your physicality, the words will come out of you. You got to keep your character going all the time.
You must forgive me for laughing. Caroline said that I have the keenest sense of humor out of anyone she's ever met.
Keep your posture.
The man I marry shouldn't have any complaints. I make practically all my own clothes. Caroline, she's the girl I used to live with. She used to say that I always looked like I just stepped out of a bandbox, even if it was to just sit at home. We hardly ever went out evenings. I always preferred to sit at home and read or dream. I'm losing all my words. I'm sorry.
We stop for a second. It's really very good. It's really very good. But what I mean by, you know, if you keep your uprightness all the time and keep renewing that sense of the character, and she's going to tell you, oh, yes, you know, this is who I am. And, you know, she's an innocent. You know, if you're sort of like this, and then it becomes too real, and then it's, you know, it's not acting anymore.
Right.
Yeah. But let me hear from people. Say something about it. What you saw. Hannah. Yeah.
I think this last time around I saw like more complexity of like how to navigate, because she is kind of flirting with him, right? She's like, but she's also like, oh, I'm not. And whereas the first time I was like, she's flirting, you know, but this time I could see like more of the navigation and that energy of like catching yourself, where I didn't know what you were going to do next.
Right. Yeah. Sina, was that a hand?
Yeah, I really honestly felt like the whole time, Caroline, you were really like checking in with whoever this other person is to see like how it wasn't like you were just speaking and it was like reciting a monologue. It felt very alive and that you were talking to someone else and they were you had a reason to keep speaking.
Yeah, Josh. Yeah, and then Madge. Josh.
Yeah, a lot of time it felt like the proverbial beach ball, like you were keeping it up with that up energy, like, and I think that has to do with what Sina was saying, was a real check-in with the partner and figuring out what your next move was to get what you wanted, and to not have him see you in a way that you didn't want him to see you.
The what I want to see more of is Carolyn disappearing. Right? That is fun when somebody disappears. So I give you an example. Julian in class on Monday did a scene from People, Places, and Things. And it was wonderful, but it was too much Julian. And I asked him, I said, go ahead, let it be a bit more, I use the word flamboyant. And I can only tell you that what came through was so brilliant. We were all sitting there. We didn't tape the class, and I wish we had, because it was utterly brilliant, because it dropped down from here and Julian doing it to something here, and gestures came out. It evoked in me a memory I had of Jay when I was at Vassar, and I remember we had my senior year was the first year they had freshman men. And I remember there was this guy, Jackie Weiss. And, he used to say to me, oh, that dress is so dreamy, may I borrow it? And it was so sad because he came to a very bad end in a SRO hotel in Manhattan. There was a fire. And he was trying, it was those early days while he was trying to find his way. There wasn't a lot of acceptance. There wasn't support. And that got evoked in me. And I was telling that to Nate yesterday. He said, well, that's, isn't that what we want to do in acting? We want to evoke memories in somebody. We want our character to remind them of something else in their life. And it really, I thought it was great of Nate to say that, but it was just staggering. What Julian did was just staggeringly brilliant. But that was because he lived a character. So it's not us. And if you find a character, and this is heightened in a way, right? These are, comedic characters. George S. Kaufman. They're standard characters, but they're fun, and we love them. And so you play that, you find her, and when it's really against your type, it's hard because, look at Carolyn. You have this face that is so sensitive. Right? Everything plays off your face and your eyes and everything. So that's going to be a harder sell for us, but you could do it. Part of that is, keeping your, how does she hold herself? She seems to me like somebody who, is holding herself, who's gone to charm school, who's learned all, the upper class ways of being in society, not upper class ways, but the genteel society, how to dress. She's gone to secretarial school. Well, she's a dental hygienist, right? But let's pretend she did that too. And so she's learned, poise, how to wear the white gloves. Even if you put on a pair of white gloves, or something, anything to dress yourself in that part psychologically. Anyone have thoughts about that? It's like Riley wearing your feather boa and cowboy mouth. What do you think about that? Carolyn, what? Yeah, Kyle, and then Carolyn.
I was just gonna say, I forget who said this. I think one of our other teachers, it's something that putting you in touch with the character, or things that put you in touch with yourself in order to lose yourself through the character. I forget some interview I read, somebody was saying that they always think about what their character has in their pockets, and it's little things like that. How different is that from what I'm carrying in my pockets, and how does that put me in touch with a different state of being?
Right. I think that's wonderful. I think that it's like you playing air guitar.
Yeah.
Madge, did you say something? Saucy.
I was just, to Kyle's point, was saucy. Like I didn't think, I've not heard that quote, but I agree. And then I was gonna say about Caroline, I felt like the last time that you did it, I don't know if you were doing it before, but it felt like you weren't watching yourself screen wise, which I think is a whole new thing we've been tackling as like the Zoom actor life, you know what I mean?
Right.
As opposed to like going in. And I felt like the last time you didn't care what you were looking like. And there was this moment where I wanted to screen grab your face because there was like just this element of like desperation that was so the character, not you. And it was so, but it like, it was beautiful, even though it was like devastating. So yeah, great job.
Yeah, I mean, you have to play with the camera. I mean, it's the same thing as when you're doing your own rehearsals. I was showing this to, I think, somebody, maybe Josh, it was to you, or maybe to the second year students, that when I'm rehearsing by myself before a concert and I'm talking to the audience, I just see the audience and I play with them and I tell them, you know, the stories I'm going to be telling, but I'm here like seeing that. And that's what you do when you're rehearsing your lines. When I used to rehearse my lines by myself, I would just see the partner, but not seeing the partner like this is when I'm talking to the partner, because then that's what we look like. But when you just see, that's imagination. So if I were playing that character in a way, I just sort of see her and I feel her, and she's just talking to him like this, right? Because that's the character, which is why later in the play, and he's sort of a bumbling, oh yeah, you know, guy. He's going to be a lyricist, a big Broadway lyricist, and then he, you know, gets seduced by somebody who's much more worldly than this lovely little dental hygienist. So, you know, you have to have fun with it, right? You create that character. It's like putting on a surgical gown. You know, you enter into the character. Any thoughts about that? Final thoughts from anyone? Carolyn, anything that?
Yeah, I feel like what I'm about to say is so not Alexander, so I'm hesitating, but I think the struggle right now that it is it's getting the self out of the way, because yeah, and so right now that feels like scooping up the self and like tossing it out of the way so the character can come through, and it just seems right now it just seems so heavy, but I know I have the tools to do that. It's just making that my daily practice.
And don't worry about it. And what wonderful language you use about the heaviness. This is very hard, especially when it is so going against type, right? You know, you really, this is not you, right? It's not me either. But, you know, maybe think of her less intelligent, you know, in a certain way, certainly less worldly, you know, just a different time. And again, it's sort of fun to do that because we can go to extremes. You know, we can go for broke. We can do something that's out of our wheelhouse. You know, it's like a student, Will Hayer, a million years ago, who was one of the founding members of Actor Studio. He always wanted to do Romeo, and he was 80. And he did Romeo on stage at the Actor Studio, finished his monologue, spun around, and dropped dead. It's sort of a terrible story, but I mean, you know, so you can do this. I mean, he right, I know, sort of, you know, in retrospect, what a fitting end, right? Isn't that the greatest end of to be on stage? Martha Schlamme, who's a great Bertolt Brecht, Kurt Weill interpreter, really brilliant. That happened to her on stage too. Can you imagine how harrowing it is for an audience, though? It's wonderful for the performer, for the actor. I mean, you know, you'll live in history forever for doing that. But can you imagine how traumatic that is to the audience? You know, but I digress. So we'll play with this, but please don't get down on yourself. These are heavy times, and you know, sometimes you struggle like this with something, and then there's a breakthrough. There's one little thing, finding what's in the pockets, or one little thing that provides you with a little breakthrough, and then you're home free. And that's what you always have to trust. Okay. Final thoughts, anyone? Closing comments? Unbelievable work. Anything? Yeah, Sina, was that just? Richard Nixon victory.
Thank you, Jean.
Amazing work, Rod.
Jean.
Good luck, Josh and
Thank you.
Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
You.
Wonderful. See you soon.
You.
Thank you, Jean.
Ciao.